It's been hard to really settle on the message that I felt like God wanted me to preach. Because I've thought of so many mothers whose hearts have been touched in so many ways by life. But through it all, there's peace, there's joy in the midst of the storm. Let's turn to 3 John. Now, 3 John is right before you get to Jude, and Jude is right before you get to Revelation. Praise God. Thank you, Lord. My kids came yesterday and brought my Mother's Day gift. I had wanted a new grill, so they brought me a grill and then brought the steaks and grilled them and the baked potatoes and salad and everything that goes with a cookout. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. But you know, as I was so enjoying my time with the kids, and they came on Saturday, so I'd have today free. But I looked at each one, and I'm sure you as a mother can relate to what I'm saying. You see so many things they're dealing with in life. This generation of young people, they're dealing with a lot of issues. And that is a fact. And I preached in Tracy City, Tennessee last Sunday night and looked back and saw all those young people, a lot of young people, that were shouting, praising God under the awesome power of the living God. And I thought what our young people, as a mother, grandmother, what our young people need in this day is an old-time altar experience, a tangible altar experience. And I'm praying that God will begin to move on this younger generation and just wake up something in them. How many of you, you know either your children or someone that has sat under that old-time gospel back over the years. Somewhere back in the past, they've heard the message of Pentecost. They've heard the message of being born again, overcoming. And I feel like it's time that that is to be stirred in this younger generation. If you found 3 John, it is in the Bible. Brother Stevens was here years back. I was sitting right there. I'll never forget it. He said, Sister Gladys, turn to the book of Isaiah something. I flipped through that Bible, and I like to have never found Isaiah. You know, and he kept waiting, and I kept flipping those pages. I got so nervous and embarrassed. Have you ever looked for a chapter and couldn't find it? But when you're under pressure, it makes it even worse. So 3 John is not easy to find unless you know where to find it. All right. The elder unto the well-beloved Gaius, to whom I love in the truth. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospers. For I rejoice greatly when the brethren came and testified of the truth that is in thee, even as thou walkest in truth. Now verse 4. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. Paul speaking, he said, I would have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in truth, serving God. As a mother, the greatest news I could hear would be that my children, my grandchildren, are walking in truth. That truth got a hold of them, and they got a hold of truth. I've heard that the 3rd generation, every 3rd generation, is when seems like that third generation is one that almost has to rekindle the fire of Pentecost. For some reason, I don't know why. But I read in 2 Timothy chapter 1 about Timothy and Paul, his spiritual father. And Timothy was, I would call the third generation Pentecost. My children are the third generation Pentecostal. My grandchildren would be the fourth generation Pentecostal. And I can tell you that the present generation, I would say the third generation of Pentecost in my family, seemingly has all but lost what the fire of Pentecost is all about. The joy of Pentecost. The need for Pentecost. My daddy and my mama, they had no daddy, mother, granddaddy, anyone, aunt, uncle, no one. They had no one to tell them about Jesus and about the love of God. All they knew was a sinner's lifestyle. That's all they'd ever know. And I've shared with you before how my dad was down in Georgia and someone pitched that old-fashioned tent revival and my dad went. And I would love to kiss the feet of that preacher that preached that message that got a hold of that sinner boy's heart and life. And that's the first generation of Pentecostals that my dad had ever experienced. And from him, the fire was passed down. Then from me, I've tried to pass it down to my boys and my grandchildren. But you know it takes God to do that. In the meantime, we can stand in the gap and say, but God, but God, but God. Paul said, I thank God. I thank God. Let's go to 2 Timothy. 2 Timothy chapter 1. And we're going to go down to verse 5. I feel broken this morning. I feel a tenderness in my heart. But Paul was speaking to young Timothy. And he referred to him as being his dearly beloved son. Grace, mercy, and peace from God the Father and Christ Jesus our Lord. And it seems like he began to pour out his very soul to Timothy. He said, I thank God, whom I serve from my forefathers with pure conscience, that without ceasing I have remembrance of thee in my prayers night and day. Paul was saying this. For years, young man, I've been praying for you with a pure conscience. And without ceasing, have remembrance of thee in my prayer night and day. If you knew of a tried and true servant of God, I mean their knees were worn out in prayer. They had spent every breathing moment in the things of God. And they came to you and said, I've never forgotten you, Timothy. I knew your grandmother. I knew your mother. But I want you to know that I bring you into remembrance before God day and night. For day and night, for years, I've brought you into remembrance before God. Wouldn't that be sweet words? There's a song we sing sometimes. The sweetest words I've ever heard is, I forgive. The sweetest words we will ever hear also is when we hear that our sons and our daughters have went before that old-fashioned altar and made peace with God. But Timothy, without ceasing, day and night, I've brought you into remembrance before God. Now, I don't know what those memories were about this young man. Last Sunday night, when I gave the altar call, and I had preached on those long white robes, the saints when they come gathering in with those long white robes. But the question was asked, who are these that come out of great tribulation? And the answer was this: these are they that have come out of great tribulation and have washed their robes. You see, there was something about going through a time of trouble. They had to stop it and wash their robes all over again. And this young girl, I asked someone, I said, how old is that little girl? She was about 11 years of age. And that little girl was up there speaking in tongues. And the power of God shaking her like a leaf. But she was up in the altar praying with an older woman to get the Holy Ghost. Sandy saw it. The most beautiful sight that my eyes could see would not be a new house, a new car, or things, no. But the most beautiful sight that I could see on planet Earth is if I could see my little granddaughter or grandson in the altar tarrying with someone else to get the Holy Ghost. Those young teenagers were in the altar, their little arms up in the air just shaking and quaking like old-time Pentecost. And I thought, God, our young, my babies, they don't need to see entertainment. They don't need a blue light special. They don't need anyone to promise them, if you'll come to church, I'll do this, I'll do that, and I'll do that. That's nothing but contributing to the problem. But if God, will send old-time conviction, my God, in the hearts and lives of our children, I want to preach today from a mother's heart. I want to preach a little bit today from a mother's heart, not just my heart, but your heart, a mother's heart. But God, stir up those memories. Paul, he remembered Timothy's grandmother, Lois. And he said, your mama also. And I don't know what was going on with young Timothy, but it looked like he had begun to kind of depart from the faith somehow. He had laid off the things of God, it seems like. Because Paul told him, son, you've got to put the garment back on of a soldier. If you want to be a good soldier, there's a certain outfit you've got to wear. There's a certain uniform you wear when you become a soldier of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords in the army of God. You lay off your own and put on the new. But here Paul said in verse 5, when I called your remembrance, he just told Timothy, I've prayed for you night and day. But then in verse 5, when I called to remembrance that unfinished faith, that I looked that word up, it meant sincere. Sincere, absolute sincere faith in God. When I call to remembrance the unfinished faith that is in thee, which dwelt first in thy grandmother Lois, thy mother Eunice, and I'm persuaded that you also. I preached on this a few weeks back, but I'm going at a different angle today. Wherefore I put thee in remembrance. Now I want you to get this, that thou stir up the gift of God, which is in thee by the putting on of my hands. To stir up that gift, to stir up, meant more than just, you stir up a pot of beans or something. To stir up here meant rekindle. Timothy, you rekindle what was instilled to you when I prayed for you. My mind goes back over the years to different, Brother Homer Stevens, for one, that used to come here and preach. And he would speak words over different people. And the words that he spoke was to the young and the old. But somewhere along the way, it seems like those words have been lying dormant. They're not active, but they're there. And that's why Timothy was. Paul, this old man of God, at some point had laid hands on young Timothy and spoke a word of prophecy over him. And now later, the Lord stood once before this young man and said, Timothy, remember the day that I laid these worn out hands on you and I prophesied over you. He said, now, I want you to rekindle that gift. I want you to rekindle that fire. I want you to rekindle. So if you have to rekindle something, that means it went out. And I thought of my children and your children, maybe brothers or sisters or family. Over the years, they've been prophesied over. They've been prayed over. And maybe it looked like nothing happened. I've come to tell you today in the name of Jesus that we're going to stand in the gap, I call you. And like the Apostle Paul, we may not call them by Timothy, but we can call them by their name and say, I'm going to stand in the gap. And that seed that was planted in you when you was a baby, that seed that was spoken over, that preacher that preached when you were squalling, bawling, didn't hear a word, moved about, didn't hear a word. But there was a word, I call you, that penetrated the little mind, the little memory. And somewhere in the back of that mind, there's a word of truth that's going to start rising up. It's time to rekindle the fire of old-time Pentecost in our young people. Hallelujah. But that gift of God, you've got to get it rekindled, which is in thee by the putting on of my hands. The power of the laying hold of hands. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And I looked up the word gift there. Oh, yeah, that blessed me so much. In the past, I've preached that maybe it's the gift of the Holy Ghost. But that gift there in Greek meant the gift of being delivered from danger or passion. When Timothy was just a little boy, this old man of God had laid his hands on him and imparted a protection in that young man according to the Word of God. And that gift, special from God, meant that Timothy would be delivered from danger or passion. And said, Timothy, your grandmother Lois had that gift. My God, she had that connection. She had a made-up mind. And Timothy, she passed that down to her daughter Eunice. And I believe it's in you too, Timothy, third generation. There's a fire in you that's got to be stirred up. There's a passion in you that's got to be stirred up. If ever the third generation needs protection, deliverances in this day, when I repeat this nearly every week, the spirit that's coming after our young generation. It's a diabolical thing. I hate to stay on it all the time, but I've got to. Because our young people are dealing with a different devil than we did. A different level of a perversion than we did. But if we, I know we can, stand in the gap and start stirring their memory, stirring that word that's in them by some man or woman of God. Honey, it's there. We don't have to turn our children loose and let them go. We don't have to stand back and just tell how bad things are. We've got the power, I said we've got the power to stand before God like Abraham did in his day when it looked like his whole family, Lot, was down there in Sodom. But Abraham said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to go back and I'm going to stand before God. I'm going to stand yet before God. I'm going to stand, my God, in deliverance mode for my family, sweet people, mothers and daddies. We've got, my God, we've got to stand in the gap for our children. I feel the witness of the Holy Ghost in the house today. I feel the power of God in this pulpit with me. You see, we don't have to stand and just let the government take over our children. We don't have to just stand back and talk about how bad it is when they're teaching little girls. And again, I get this nearly every week, and I'm going to keep doing it. But you see, I've got little grandchildren and great-grandchildren that's out there, and their little minds are at the mercy of some demonic force that would like to take them and rewire their brain and cause them, my God, to miss everything about God. But how many of you know younger people, even Jeremy back there, has sat under the old-time Holy Ghost fire long enough? Son, it needs to be stirred. It needs to be stirred. And Paul said, I'm going to tell you what, you need to rekindle that fire that was put there when I laid these old hands upon you and I prophesied. You know, Timothy had a word in him. He had a prophetic word in him. I believe every one of you here, can you look back and remember when someone gave your child a prophetic word? Well, honey, it's still real. It's still real, brother. It hadn't changed. It hadn't changed one bit. But I believe that God is telling me to tell you, like Timothy, get that stirred up. It was in the first generation. It was in the second generation. And Timothy, you pick it up in the third generation. And you put that garment back on. You put that suit, that soldier's uniform back on. And you get out there on the battlefield. Hallelujah. I was talking to my grandson, great-grandson that came in from college yesterday or Friday. And he amazed me. I began to ask him about this woke thing that's going on in colleges. He said, Granny, he said, in other words, it's not affecting him like it is a lot of young people. It seems like the Lord has sheltered his mind. The Lord has sheltered and protected the way he thinks. I thank God for that. My mother's heart's crying out today, not for just my children, but for your children, your grandchildren, and others. But if we will stand in the gap, if we will just stand in that gap and let God begin to stir that seed that's been planted in our children. When I read there where Paul speaking and said his greatest joy was to hear that his children, or in other words, children in the flesh, was walking in truth. And I thought, God, truth is all that's going to stand in this end time. Truth. Truth. So today, mothers, I want to encourage you, and fathers, I encourage, Yeah, there can't be a mother without a father somewhere. Somewhere there's a daddy. But to look back and stand before God and say, God, remember, when I preached and my baby has heard it. Other preachers preached it, and God, they heard it. Now, like young Timothy in 2 Timothy, it's time to rekindle the fire. Rekindle that conviction. Rekindle the awareness. Rekindle God, the Word of God. How many of you want to God to rekindle the flame, the conviction, the integrity that it's going to take to make it. That's all I could think of. Seems like the Lord said, preach about getting the gift stirred up that's in the young. It's there. It's there. It's there. That knowledge is there. But what we've got to do is stand in the gap. Keep praising God, reminding God, Lord, I've sowed the seed. God, I've sowed the seed. Now let my prayer, God, let my intercession come before you. And Lord, my babies that's heard me praying, my babies that's heard me praying, my babies, my God, that's seen me walk before you, God, somehow let my walk before you be a testimony before my children. God, and let that word begin to blaze one more time. When Paul said, stir up the gift that's in you, that meant rekindle that gift. That gift of the faith meant conviction. It meant conviction. Conviction has got to come back to the house of God. Old-time, heartfelt conviction. Lord, let it come back. That's the only thing that's going to stir this younger generation. The only thing that's going to stir this younger generation is for that old-time conviction to come back one more time. That will set a pattern in their young life. Would you stand? God, stir their memory. God, stir their minds. Help them to remember God. Help them to remember God. And let them feel a drawing back. God, let them feel drawn back